Body horror is often most effective when it's personal. I mean, you can have, gore and people getting sliced up and disemboweled and stuff like that. But and oftentimes when you watch these types of films, whether it be like David Cronenberg's The Fly, for instance, you get to know the person or the people involved, the major players involved. You understand their personalities, their relationships, their goals, their flaws, and you start to, in most cases, I think, really care about them, or at the very least be invested in them and their stories. And so when something bad happens to them, as is often the case in many body horror films, you have that personal connection. It makes the horror, I think, a lot more intimate. I love horror movies. Grew up with them since I was a kid. But my favorite subgenre of horror has always been body horror. The idea of your own body being the source of the horror itself. That always just really intrigued me. It terrified me because what can you do? You're just out of luck. It's not like, fighting a slasher villain, a person, a killer, or a monster. Your options are limited, and I've always found those stories, those body horror stories, just very harrowing. Whether it be in films like John Carpenter's The Thing or David Cronenberg's The Fly, or even more recent body horror films like The Substance, my favorite movie of 2024. These movies and stories just have an effect on me, like a profound effect on me. And that's why I was so intrigued by Together. A body horror film directed by Michael Shanks, who I'm unfamiliar with, and starring Dave Franco and Alison Brie, who I am familiar with. I've liked their past works. I guess I mostly know Dave Franco through his work with Phil Lord and Chris Miller in the 21 Jump Street movies as Eric. Very, very funny. I know he's done dramatic work and he's done some other genre work too. And I've always liked Alison Brie. I think she's a very underrated actress. Loved her work in Community, that great comedy series. And I love the show Glow. And I was so upset that it was canceled. And I thought she did a great job in that series as well. We need that last season. Also, people don't know, Franco and Brie are actually a married couple in real life. And in this movie, they star as a couple who essentially move to the countryside and find themselves encountering a mysterious goo, a mysterious force that horrifically causes changes to their bodies. Literally feeling a physical need, a physical lust to become a single organism, hence the name Together. Body horror hijinks ensue. Overall, I think this is a great body horror film, and that's due in no small part to some just great performances, razor-sharp performances from Dave Franco and Alison Brie. They have some really great and unnerving chemistry throughout the film. The visceral body horror set pieces are really good. Some nice practical moments, and the CGI they use, it also looks pretty good too. Looks really well. Works really well in the film, I should say. And you have just this nice slow burn suspense that keeps you in a vice grip of uncomfortableness as you watch the movie. Franco's performance in particular, I think, is just a masterclass in slow disintegration. It's so often the case in a lot of body horror films, for the performer in the body horror film. He suddenly kind of shifts from this very charming, goofy, man that's haunted by grotesque changes happening under his skin and within his mind. Even before the events of the film, he's got stuff going on that's just adding to his disintegration, if you will. His physicality, I think particularly in scenes where his body starts convulsing or moving or tearing in unnatural ways is very convincing, disturbingly convincing throughout the entire film. Brie, I think, is the emotional core of the movie. She portrays a woman just kind of torn between supporting her partner, working on her career, but also dealing with her own creeping terror. Her empathy throughout the movie turns to horror as she's forced into, moments of really gut-wrenching decision-making, especially as her character of Emma starts questioning whether she's enabling Dave Franco's character his transformation or becoming, really complicit in something far worse. Their real life relationship, I think, translates into incredible on-screen chemistry, which makes the body horror even more effective. You believe they love each other, which makes watching their bond corrode under the pressure of bodily mutilation. And again, their dynamic is, I think, key, because body horror is often most effective when it's personal. I mean, you can have, gore and people getting sliced up and disemboweled and stuff like that. But oftentimes when you watch these types of films, whether it be like David Cronenberg's The Fly, for instance, you get to know the person or the people involved, the major players involved. You understand their personalities, their relationships, their goals, their flaws, and you start to, in most cases, I think, really care about them, or at the very least be invested in them and their stories. And so when something bad happens to them, as is often the case in many body horror films, you have that personal connection. It makes the horror, I think, a lot more intimate. And the film, again, it doesn't rely on cheap gore. It's patient, it's very visceral. And it evokes the best of body horror films past. The practical effects, I think, mixed with this minimal, organic-looking CGI, augmentation, pretty much, it ensures that the horror feels very tactile, very believable. The transformations themselves are just not visual. They come with horrifying sound effects, skin tearing and weaving, bones grinding. They're designed to make you flinch in a great way. One thing I also really appreciate about the movie, and I think this is sometimes a flaw that many movies make, not just horror films, but just many movies in general, is that they don't over-explain the substance, the force, whatever you want to consider it, the liquid that they encounter in the woods that starts to make them change, the others change. And doing so, I think, would cause like a Prometheus situation, making something mysterious and intriguing, eventually become lackluster and oftentimes stupid. They don't have a moment where it's like, we got to explain the black goo. There's never a period where like, okay, we're going to over-explain this black goo. There is a sense of mystery, though, no doubt, but they reveal just enough along the way, I think, to keep you invested, to keep you intrigued. Also, I want to highlight, because, a lot of people are obviously praising Franco and Bree's performances, and they are very good in the movie, but you also have, a supporting cast as well. I would say, like, the next most important player is Damon Harriman, who plays Jamie. Plays Jamie in the film. He essentially is their neighbor and a coworker to Bree's character, and I really like his performance and what he brought to the film. He has some good intimate moments, I think, with a lot of the cast. The cast, namely being Franco and Bree. Really liked it. I think the ending might not work for some people, but it ends in a way that is, I think, very different from other body horror films. I don't want to reveal too much, obviously, but it presents body horror in the end as a very emotional thing, as a release. And if you watch the movie, you probably understand what I'm saying. I don't want to reveal too much, obviously. But at the end of the day, I think together, it isn't just about flesh and mutation. It's about what it means to watch someone you love change into something unrecognizable. All the feelings that come with that, including watching yourself change at the same time. The horror, I think it's magnified by the intimate performances and the emotional deterioration, of the relationship, of Franco and Bree's relationship. The physical metamorphosis mirrors their emotional decay in their relationship, which in essence is body horror, is great body horror. both of them go hand in hand. The terror of transformation, both of body, of mind, of the bond itself. But overall, I really enjoyed the film, and I think if you're a fan of horror, if you're a fan of body horror and like really intimate performances, and of course you just like goop. If you like goop, if you want to see some gross people in the movie, and boy, do they have sequences where it's like, this is very gross, it works. It works very, very, very well. But what about you guys? Did you see it together? Did you like it as much as I did? Were you more mixed on it? Like, I like the body horror stuff, but this relationship stuff, get that out of here. Did you downright hate it? Do you just not like body horror films? They're not your cup of tea. Is it just too goopy? Is it too gooey? Let me know.
5 minutes later.
Let's see. KC says, body horror is my favorite subgenre of horror as well. The Substance is probably the best modern version of body horror. It is very profound. It was certainly my favorite movie of last year. I think it deserved even more accolades than it got. I mean, Demi Moore should have won, but that's a crime that I forget. I don't remember who won Best Actress that year. Like Demi Moore was the obvious choice. It was an obvious choice. It was just not only because of her career, multi-decade long career, literally giving, in my opinion, the best performance of her entire career. And I think the reason that held her back. It's not the fault of her own, not the movie's fault either. Obviously not, but there is a very obvious bias towards genre fare from the Academy. Horror, fantasy, science fiction, they always stick their noses up at. I mean, you saw like all these people that were speaking, without revealing their identities. I was like, oh, The Substance, no, I can't watch something like that. I can't vote for it. I love Demi Moore. I love her, but I can't vote for that. It's a horror film. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Which I find extremely obnoxious. She was great on Mad Men too. Yeah, she was great on Mad Men, yeah. Glow was amazing. Glow is such a great show. Such a goddamn shame we never got that last season. I mean, you can still watch. I still encourage people to watch. It just ends now in a very sad way. Yeah, she's very underrated. She's great. She's very good here. I didn't get to see this because I was busy in the city, but I'm going to try seeing it along with Weapons. But yeah, horror double feature. Very nice. Forge, you can't handle the body horror. I get you. It's, you got some gross moments in this movie. Yeah. Oh, that's the guy who played Charles. Oh, it's that guy in Mindhunter, Once Upon a Time on Hollywood. He's very. Oh shit. Yeah, he does. Wow, that is him. Now I'm looking. I was like, this guy. Like I've seen this guy in something. I'm like, I can't remember what it was. Those things. He's great. Well, he's really good in Mindhunter. He just kind of is there in Once Upon a Time on Hollywood. He just shows up because really it's the Quentin Tarantino. He's just it's the weakest part of the film in my opinion. Everything they do with the Charles Manson cult. Where they're just kind of like, teasing you along the way, with that, even though it's not really relevant to the film itself. I like this a lot. Certainly the most romantic film. It is, yeah. No, I gotta look back and all the movies I've seen, all the romances, but yeah, I would say it is the most romantic movie. It's a great movie about relationships. Also, if you might be having issues, I don't know, maybe I should put a disclaimer here. If you're having issues in your relationship right now, maybe it's not the best thing to do in terms of taking your significant other to see this movie. it might exacerbate things in a negative way. That's all I'll say. That's a great parallel of body horror like Substance of the Flight. Oh, very much so. Haven't seen it, but we'll definitely check it out. Nice. I saw it separately. And there's things. Yes, I would say if you're going to watch this movie, maybe don't bring your significant other. Watch it separately, not together. Ace of Cardellodi, hope you're doing well. It's about a good debut from Aussie director Michael Shanks, who lists among his many inspirations David Lynch and John Carpenter. Nice. I mean, you can see that. You can certainly see that in his filmmaking style. Like, yeah, I'm unfamiliar with this guy. I guess he was a YouTuber. I was looking him up before because I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I think he was a YouTuber for many years, and then he made the transition to filmmaking. I think he did a fantastic job. He did a wonderful job. So, very excited to see what he's going to do next. He also the guy who said he's about to get a soul. Oh, he's oh god, what's his name? Cabal. He's Cabal in Mortal Kombat. Oh, that's nice. That's good. No wonder I like that guy. Oh, that's true, man. You had what was the movie this year? Hard Eyes. Hard Eyes was this year, right? Hard Eyes. Yeah, there you go. And Companion. That is true. Valentine's Day is a decent selection of horror films now. Together, Companion, Hard Eyes. Yeah, it really does. It really does. Yeah, I guess technically Together is the most romantic of those. Companion is like, I guess in terms of how messed up the relationships are, I guess Companion, I would argue, is the most messed up. It's a very toxic relationship. Together, it's like the two characters definitely have relationship issues. There's no question. But, they're working on it. Despite everything. Hard Eyes, I think, is the most positive because this is the two people kind of coming together and bonding over shared trauma since they're being pursued by a serial killer. So there is that. It's a hell of a triple feature indeed. But great. All three really good movies in my opinion. So, but yeah, Together overall, I think it's very much worth seeing in the theater. You get everything you want in there. You get some great acting. You get some really cool body horror sequences, no doubt. Some nice suspense, nice layer of mystery layering on top. So there's a lot to appreciate with this film. So I recommend it.